What's up, family? So, welcome back to the channel. We got some major news coming through, and trust me, you're going to want to hear this. So, the tension between Canada and the U.S. just hit a bit of a pause, and it's all about tariffs, right? I'm sure you may know Prime Minister Justin Trudeau just confirmed that the U.S. President Donald Trump is backing off on his plan to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian products for now. Yes, you heard that right, just for now. So, the breaking news is Trudeau took to social media to give his update, and he said that he just had a productive call with President Trump, and it looks like Canada is taking a strong step with a $1.3 billion border plan to stop fentanyl from coming into the U.S., and they're rolling out new resources, technology, and personnel. And you got Border Patrol helicopters, eyes on the border 24/7, and even a new plan to appoint a fentanyl czar. Yeah, it sounds like a bit like the U.S., doesn't it? So with no further ado, let's get straight into the video.
Welcome to City News. We are tracking breaking news, and you can almost hear the sigh of relief coming from across Canada this hour. Just minutes ago, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau confirming that U.S. President Donald Trump is backing off on his plan to slap 25% tariffs on Canadian products for at least 30 days. Trudeau posting on social media just minutes ago saying, quote, "I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl." In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. And he continues to say, "I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together." On that note, let's bring in our political specialist, Glenn McGregor.
And you know, some of you might be thinking, hold up, are we talking about Canada, or did the U.S. just scoop them up as the 51st state? Seriously, it's like the whole operation is straight out of Trump's playbook. You got a fentanyl czar, cartels being labeled as terrorists. It's starting to feel like Canada is on the same page as the U.S. And not just in terms of policy, but hey, let's be real for a minute. There's a lot at stake here, and Canada wants to show they're serious about fighting fentanyl, and the U.S. want results, right? But let's continue.
From Ottawa, and Glenn, this is unfolding in real time. How did the Prime Minister manage to get this last-minute reprieve?
A little bit of telephone diplomacy here today. The Prime Minister and the President speaking twice, once this morning and then just this afternoon, after which Trudeau made that post on X where he announced the 30-day reprieve. And really what Trudeau has done here is given something that Donald Trump can claim as a win on his effort to control the amount of fentanyl coming into the United States, even though Canada doesn't really believe it's that big a problem. Yes, we've certainly had a fentanyl problem in this country, and we can certainly do more to crack down on the import of precursor chemicals that get brought into Canada, mostly from China, and some of it gets smuggled into the United States. But there wasn't really a sense in Canada that this was as big an issue as Trump made it out to be. He was much more concerned about the southern border, which, you know, something in the order of 100 times more fentanyl, according to estimates, coming across into the U.S. that way. But yes, so these new measures that will address some of Trump's concerns on fentanyl trafficking, the appointment of a fentanyl czar. We've never really had czar positions in Canada. It's common in the United States to appoint one person to oversee a particularly contentious file. We're going to do that here. Don't know who that person's going to be, what kind of powers they're going to have. They're not really going to have a ministry, it doesn't sound like, but okay, if that's what Trump wants, the attitude seems to be from the Prime Minister's office, okay, we're going to do that too. We're also going to designate, as you said, Mexican cartels that are producing fentanyl in Canada as terrorist organizations. Again, this is an allegation that Trump has made. We haven't seen a lot of evidence that Mexican cartels are coming up to Canada to make their fentanyl here and then smuggle it to the United States compared to the ones that are already operating in Mexico, sending it south. And then, yes, there will also be this joint strike force to deal with organized crime, drug smuggling, and money laundering. And the federal government's going to put up $200 million to pay for it. We presume that's on top of the $1.3 billion in spending to bolster the border the government has already announced. But at least all these measures now seem to have at least appeased Trump temporarily, and now we start this process where we think we're going to have some negotiations with the American side over the next couple of weeks.
Now, we should mention that Trump also gave Mexico a 30-day pause earlier today on potential tariffs. Again, a 30-day pause. So we have a month. What needs to happen in the coming days and weeks in order to get Trump to back down permanently? I mean, he's in office for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note that that announcement of the 30-day reprieve for Mexico came after Trump and Trudeau spoke the first time. There's a lot of concern expressed here that we're not going to get the same deal, that Mexico, even though it's a much greater problem for the United States, both in human smuggling and drug smuggling, is getting a better deal than Canada was getting. But no, we got this reprieve, and now we got to figure out what the Trump administration needs to declare a win here. This is kind of the strategy that Trump uses in these kinds of disputes. Is he likes to use tariffs and other threats as kind of leverage and then declare a win. We saw this when he was dealing last weekend with the government of Colombia about the return of migrants who were deported out of the U.S.
So here's what's really interesting. Canada's doing a few things here that look straight out of the U.S. playbook, right? Appointing a fentanyl czar, which, by the way, they never had in Canada. Labeling Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations, and even launching a joint task force to crack down on organized crime and fentanyl trafficking. And the Canada's governor is throwing a cool $200 million into this initiative, right? So now we know Canada's border plan also involves $1.3 billion in upgrades. So there's some serious investment happening. And the question is, will it be enough to keep Trump at bay after these 30 days are up? Time will tell, but this is just the beginning of what could be some tense negotiations. And honestly, I got to say, I'm here for the submission, right? It's smart. And when you're dealing with big power players like the U.S., sometimes you got to show that you're willing to do what's necessary to keep things running smoothly. And let's be real, the U.S. is watching closely. And if Canada proves it can manage this, we could see the deal extended for another 30 days or longer. But don't forget, Mexico's also under this 30-day pause. So it's a bit of a back and forth, right? And Trump is really concerned about the trade deficit between the U.S. and Canada. And he's not happy that U.S. is importing more than exporting. And honestly, I get it. If Canada is going to keep pushing these border security measures, they might have to make some concessions on the trade front too. And it could be loosening up some banking regulations or maybe balancing out that trade deficit. So a win-win situation, right? And one thing's for sure, both sides are going to need to keep the dialogue open. Canada has to keep showing they're serious about these border measures, and the U.S. is going to want to see real changes. But this 30-day break, that buys everyone some time to negotiate and find that middle ground, if you know what I mean. So let me know what you guys think. Does Canada response make sense to you? Should they have done more, or is this a step in the right direction? However, with no further ado, family, I hope you guys enjoyed the video and stay informed. Always do your own research because this is very interesting. And it's interesting for the simple fact that things have been one way with the U.S. for so long. And let's be honest, Canada needs more. Canada needs, who really needs more? Who needs to really rely on who more for exporting? Canada, right? You know, the U.S. is importing more, but the question is, if Canada relies on exporting to the U.S. more and the U.S. is importing so much more and it's a one-way street, the U.S. could just cut it off because Canada relies on exporting more than the U.S. need to rely on it in the first place. So, at the end of the day, I know a lot of people had concerns about prices going up because of the tariffs at one point. And, you know, as we see that Canada caved in along with Mexico, But a lot of people, a lot of Americans was concerned over here in the US about the prices of an avocado going up $1, but you know, short-term pain for long-term gains. And the simple fact is Trump is looking at a long-term perspective in regards of you want to sit here and basically export to us your products and benefit off of us, and also sneaking it into the southern border where you guys basically make money. But what is the US getting out of it? And how is it beneficial when you guys have all these rules and regulations that won't even allow American banks to be in your country? So it's a lot of restrictions for us to operate in your country, but you continue to operate and reap the benefits operating in our country. So now we're going to change the trajectory of that, and it has to be a two-way street. It can't be one way where you benefit and we just got to succumb to whatever you say, while you let alone been pouring in with fentanyl as Trump is trying to control the fentanyl crisis, pouring your criminals into America and just dumping all over your trash left over to America to deal with, as you're also reaping the benefits of America as well. So basically biting the hand that feeds you, and Donald Trump is basically having the best interest of American people and saying, you know what? We're not having this no more. What are we getting out of return to this? You guys have always been the transactional one. We just have always just abided by you and also gave money to you guys to help you out in other countries and all this frivolous spending. Now we're going to be more lean. We're going to be more efficient. And if you want to operate here, you have to also abide by our taxes in this case, aka tariffs, in regards of how much we charge you to basically export your goods or bring your goods over here to the US, right? And it makes sense. And it shows that when it comes to business, the one who has the power has more leverage. It's not about feelings, but from a business perspective, if everything wants to run smoothly and everyone reap the benefits overboard or all across the board, we all got to be on one accord. It can't just be operating out of one way in regards of one person wanting this, but the other person got to just succumb to whatever the other person want. It's like, for example, let's just keep it simplistic in a relationship, right? When one person is constantly communicating and the other person is shutting the other person down, how is it really resolving issues as a whole to know how to operate in unison? So I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give this video a big thumbs up if you got some value from it. On that note, family, peace.